I think you should know that I've been able to wear just a sweatshirt outside all week. And you know what that means. It is time for summer, basically. And I need some new clothes and also to get off the floor. My original plan was to start on the jacket today and do that first, but then I sort of realized that I still don't know exactly what I want to do for it. So I thought in the meantime, we would start on the skirt. Now, this is a skirt that I've actually already made before. This is the original version, and I don't wear her for a few reasons. There's a few mistakes I made. And originally when I started brainstorming for this video and looking through, I really wanted to make a skirt out of this, but I thought that I had a lot more than I actually did. So this is enough for one outer layer, but I wouldn't be able to line it, which is a problem because I need to be able to line it because the way the skirt is so open. So I was thinking I could line it with the pink muslin, use the bloomers. They're so cute. For me personally, when I'm working on a project like this, it can get really disorganized and stressful because I'm pulling inspiration from so many different places and oftentimes ideating on it for many, many months. And that is where the sponsor of today's video comes in, Milanote. Milanote is a platform built to organize creative projects, and honestly the way I describe it is it's the closest thing that you can get to creating a physical mood board digitally. Anyway, here is the board that I made for these projects, and as you can see, I really used it as sort of my master plan with everything that I was going to need to make these things. I also really love for designing the fact that I can use these color swatches. Oftentimes I'm sort of second guessing my fabric choices, but then my favorite part is that I was able to actually save the pattern instructions for the pattern that I'm going to use for the jacket. Which is amazing because I oftentimes lose these in my file structure on my computer. And so knowing that it lives here with everything else to do with this project is so helpful. But the best part are the mood boards that I was able to create. I was able to pull inspiration images from everywhere. Pinterest, Instagram, brand websites, and put them all together on one board, which is insanely helpful because it meant that I could look at everything I was inspired by at once and organize it in a way that I was able to contrast styles that I was more or less interested in, like the Damson Matter asymmetrical tie jacket and the Sakai jean jacket. I also made a mood board for the skirt, which is a lot simpler because I was a lot more sure as to what I wanted to do for this skirt. I really, really love this My Mum Made It skirt, but I was looking at other fabric options because I don't like this pink, and I was thinking maybe white or a navy, but I settled on this brown because I was looking at my color swatches and pink, white, and brown. Just such a good color combination that I didn't even realize. Thank you so much to Milanote for sponsoring this video. This platform has been so helpful in planning these projects, and if you are interested in trying it out, you can do so for free at the link in my description. Anyway, back to the video. The length and the width of this is going to be very much determined by how much of this brown fabric I have. So I'm going to start by trimming off this excess. And now I've folded this in half and I'm going to cut along this edge. For these skirt pieces, I want a little bit of a curve, and that way it'll fit nicer around the waist when it's tied. And then we're gonna need the same type of curvature on the bottom. For the sides, we're going to make it so the side of the skirt feels more perpendicular to the lines that we just drew. Okay, it's gonna be tight, but I think this will be big enough. And now I'm gonna cut out the same shape from my lining fabric, except the only difference is I'm going to make it a half an inch smaller on the top and the bottom and one of the sides, and you'll see why in a second. My little overskirt prototype is done, and here, I'll show you it. I have to show you it over pants because it is very short. I think I kind of nailed it in terms of how the My Mum Made It version is. I do not like it with these bloomers because I feel too exposed. These are too short. This is too short. It's all too short. So I think I'm going to keep this skirt. I'm going to experiment with the bloomers next. I remember the pattern I made being longer than this and I cut it down. So I'm going to keep them longer. And then the other thing that I think will help is that this waistband that my original ones were, that's a 1/4 of an inch thick elastic. I think I'm going to use a 1/2 inch or even an inch thick elastic to give it more of a waistband, which I think will also help a lot because my other issue is that when I tie the overskirt over the bloomers, it just kind of looks weird around the waist. Something's not lining up. And I think having a better waistband, like, because it looks good on these pants, which does have a real waistband, that'll help things mesh a little bit more. And if you want to know what the pattern looks like, it's very simple. It's just a normal front and back and front. They're just normal shorts, but they've been slash and spreaded to be very big to give the volume that bloomers are supposed to have. And now I need to sew up all the seams of these shorts using French seams. French seams only because I don't want to change the color of my serger threads right now. They look so big. But we almost have a pair of shorts that I could realistically wear, right? Next step is to put the elastic in the waistband because we can't even try and attempt to try these on until we do that. I'm gonna fold over 1.5 inches, and then 1/2 inch of that will be folded over to hide the raw edge. And I'm gonna stitch around all that, leave a little bit of opening for me to be able to sew the elastic through, thread the elastic through. Yeah. Elastic is in. I did try them on already. I'm not gonna show you, but I think that the original bloomers were my problem. Well, I mean, the whole original thing was my problem, but I think that trying the overskirt on with the original bloomers was a problem. I think that I am not going to put elastic in the legs. I kind of like that it's more flowy. It helps give a little bit more volume, which I like a lot. It's almost like I'm wearing an underskirt with these and then an overskirt with the overskirt. I just finished hemming the shorts and I tried them on with the overskirt. This is exactly what I wanted. This is the fabric that I have bought for this jacket. Look at this fabric, guys. And what I mean by I bought for this jacket, I mean I bought it in December and haven't been able to get around to making it, but now is the time. And this denim is really interesting because it's a very, very dark wash waxed denim, so I'm not sure how much you can see on camera, but there is a little bit of a coating on it, which I think will make it work really well for this jacket and just make it look very like luxurious and expensive. So I'm very excited about that. And also, I did mention that I was having some second guesses about my original plan for the jacket. So during lunch today, I sketched it out, and here, I'll get you my sketchbook so I can show you what I came up with. Okay. Let me make sure that you guys can actually see what I'm... Yes, okay. This is what I've come up with. And basically what we're going for is kind of a modular design. And so we have option 1 for wearing it, which is the asymmetrical jacket. And we'll have like very much similar to my original design. But then this asymmetrical piece will be attached with a zipper, and so it'll zip off and reveal this version of the jacket underneath. And this solves two problems. One, I feel like the asymmetrical thing is a little bit of I'm being influenced by the trends. So this will probably give the jacket more longevity. It'll make it so I can wear it more ways than once. And it also means that if it's an outfit that I want to wear the jacket open, I can, because there'll be a normal jacket underneath that won't have a weird flap that'll hang around when I'm wearing it open. Yes, I'm very excited. And I don't think this is going to be as hard as it looks. So the last few days have been quite frustrating. This was my original mock-up of the Madison jacket pattern, and as you can see, there's a lot of really good things going on. It fits me really well. It has the silhouette that I was looking for. But the big modifications that we need to do is, one, we need to figure out what the center point is of these flaps and mark that so we can create the pattern piece for the version that will just zip in the middle. Then we also need to figure out if this is the seam line that the flap is going to be attached to, what shape is it going to make? And then the other thing is that the sleeves are a little bit tighter than I want for this jacket, since denim doesn't have a lot of mobility and stretch, and so I am going to bring in more volume into the sleeves, although I'm thinking that's a later problem because I have to figure out all of this bodice stuff first before I can attach the sleeves. So I feel like I start with the main part and then the sleeves can come later. Yeah? Let's get started. Now, what I'm doing right now is I'm just going to try and smooth this out. So I'm bringing this edge to where the seam line is, as that's how this jacket fits when it's on. Give that a little bit of a press to make sure everything is where it should be. Let's just, so this is 8 inches. I'm just gonna keep marking the center. That's kind of the idea. I am probably going to end up cropping this at some point, but I'll leave that until I can fit it with the actual fabric. Cool, that's the upfront work we need to do, because I'll figure out the flat piece once I have my denim mocked up. I love making jackets, because with pants you have to figure this all out beforehand because you don't know how it fits until they're basically done. But with a jacket I could just try it on as I go and sort of like wing it. I'm going to blanket add 5/8 of an inch of seam allowance to this because I want to do flat felt seams, and also I think that generally everything could be a little bit looser. Here's my update. I did all the easy stuff last night. And stopped once I had to do something kind of hard. And let me just say, look how clean this is looking. I have gotten so much better at this since I started making videos. Like, these flat felt seams, they look professional, like, not to brag. But anyway, I just sewed together all these panels, and now I need to do the other front side, but I need to put the zipper in, which is why I stopped. And sort of my dilemma is all my zippers are just like randomly acquired. I don't even know where I got them all. And so I have one zipper that is metal, one separating zipper that's metal, which is more appropriate for a jean jacket, and it's the perfect length for it. But I don't have any other metal zippers, and I need two, because I need the center zip, but then I also need the zip that the flap will zip on with. And so I went through and my options were either white plastic or green plastic zippers. So I'm thinking I'll go with the white, which when I realized I didn't have two metal zippers, I was pretty bummed about it, but now I'm thinking that this might actually be kind of a cool design detail. So basically from this point, I'm still basically following the instructions that the pattern gives, because in the original coat pattern, it zips up asymmetrically. And so technically there is a zipper exactly where I need a zipper to be for this version of the jacket. It's just the only difference is instead of it being the way the jacket closes, it's taking a whole panel off. And so the way that the pattern has you do it is you essentially, when you do this seam, here's the front center, front side, you just insert the zipper in between. But I do need to brainstorm a little bit because that jacket has a lining, which means that it didn't matter if the seam was unfinished or not once the zipper was inserted. But I don't know why I wouldn't be able to just incorporate the zipper tape into the flat felled seam. So I think that that should work fine, and I'm just going to do it with a normal flat felled seam and just stick the zipper in between, right? Sewing is reversible. I can always unpick it if it doesn't work out. So let's just try it. Although I guess this is the point in which I have to decide how long this jacket is going to be, because I need the bottom of the separating zipper to be at the bottom of the jacket. And I know it's too long right now. So let's figure that out first. The length of the jacket is going to be determined by this zipper because it needs to go all the way down. Okay, and this zipper, what do we think? This is my seam allowance is 1 inch everywhere, which means that this will start 1 inch below, but this is already giving me 1 inch of wiggle room. Wow, it's almost like I planned this out or something. So if we look at where this ends, it ends, oh my gosh, so much math. It's going to end five inches shorter than the jacket is currently. And then I'm assuming that I cut this right. So 5 inches off of this too. I hope I'm right. I'm stressed. 5 inches. That means we're gonna do the zipper and it needs to end here. I think I understand now. We're going to lay the zipper down, right sides together. Line it up with that marking that I made for where my hem is actually gonna go. Why I didn't just cut it this way when I originally cut the fabric? Who knows? I'm probably going to end up cropping this, but we're going to align this so the teeth of the zipper, actually no, it would be easier. I'm gonna press this with the seam allowance like this, and that way I will be able to way more easily pin this zipper where it needs to go. I don't think this can go wrong sides together. That doesn't work, so I think we have to do this right sides together, and then we'll do the flat felled reverse how I did it for the rest of these. And you might be thinking, why wouldn't you just overlock it? It's just because I want it to look nice on the inside. Okay. I won't find out if I'm right or not until I do it, so. I did it, y'all. Look how clean that is. It was possible. But also, brother and I have beef because the screw that attaches the presser foot to the rest of the machine snapped in half when I was putting the zipper foot on. Like, this is a pretty brand new machine and that should not be happening. Luckily, my old machine is also a brother and so uses the same screws, so I was able to just take the screw from that one and put it on this one. But now my next step is going to be, do I add pockets? I think I should add pockets. I think I know where I want these pockets to be, but I'm actually second guessing myself on the placement just because of all the seam allowance and everything. So I am going to actually sew the bodice part of this together first, and then I'll check the fit of the pockets on my body. May have gone on a few side quests last night. I don't even remember where I left off. I think it was when I put this zipper on. And anyway, I put it together. I tried it on. I decided that I still didn't know the pocket placement because I couldn't zip it up. I put in this zipper, which if you want to know, it's the exact same as I did this zipper in terms of how I basically sandwiched it together. And I do want to show you, I added, is this a zipper guard? I don't know. A lot of coats have it that have zippers to protect your skin, but also because the zipper can let in cold. So I did that, and everything was just put smushed right sides together or wrong, I don't know, in the way that it would unfold to make this. And I kind of made a mental checklist of what I need to do still on this jacket. One, the flap, sleeves, tons of top stitching. That's it. Oh, and then the hem facing. Also, I didn't have my camera recording when this happened, but I think everyone should know that I had to sew the front facing on, that part, about 20 times. I don't know what was going on in my brain because I literally could not attach it correctly. I just was not thinking. And normally when I get like that, I'm like, oh, I need to go to sleep. I didn't. I did the collar way harder. One go. Perfect. I was lying in bed earlier thinking about how I was going to do this, and I think the move is to attach this side of the zipper to the fabric, and then I can zip it on and cut the shape that I need. Everything needs to be right sides together, right? I'm going to do the same thing I've been doing for all these zippers, where I start by sewing it down right sides together to one of the pieces of fabric, and then I will sandwich the other piece of fabric on top, stitch it down, and then when I turn it right sides out, I'll have a zipper that is nicely put in, no zipper tape showing, etc., etc. Yeah. That this needs to be like this. Are we seeing the vision yet? Well, that's done. I guess we're gonna do the pockets now. So the last few days have been quite frustrating, but I've learned a lot. Lots of seam ripping and redoing things. When we left off, I believe I was about to do the pockets. And before I did the pockets, I realized I needed to do the hem facing so I could have a reference for where the pockets could go. So I did that and it was fine, except for this zipper right here. Bane of my existence. This zipper made everything so much harder because I had to do this bit separately than the whole rest of the jacket. And it took me a long time to get it to a level of neatness that I was happy with. And then the other frustrating thing is I think either I cut it wrong or because the pattern has a lining, the facing at the neck has more volume in it than the shell of the jacket. And so I ended up having to gather this to sew it down, and it's fine. It ended up looking nice, but it was still like a whole thing. I was not having it. And then I tried to do the pockets, and I did the pockets and then realized that the only way for me to finish the outside of them was to use my serger, which I didn't want to do because you can see the pockets. If you're wearing the jacket open, you can see the pocket finish, and that's just ugly. So I ripped those out in frustration and I moved on, did the sleeves. That was easy. That wasn't a big deal. And decided to leave the pockets for the next day, which was last night. But I did finally figure out how to make the pocket look nice. And here it is on the inside and the outside. So I'm very happy with this finish. Although thank God that I didn't use contrast stitching, because it would not look as nice if you could see the stitching that well. But I'm happy with how this pocket turned out. I'll show you how to do it on the other side. And then a few more updates about things I need to do to this jacket. The biggest thing is I realized that, I'll show you, but there's too much volume on the back of this jacket. You can see the way it pushes out. And so my solution to that is I'm going to add little tabs on the back that will fold this over when buttoned, which is something that every denim jacket I've ever owned has. So not a big deal. And then the other thing is that when I was doing the facings, the most difficult part of sewing it down was because my top stitching thread is in my upper thread. I had to always be on the right side of the fabric for any top stitching down. And I didn't want to put the top stitching thread in the bottom because I find that the bobbin stitches aren't as consistent as the top stitches. And so what I did is I basted the facing down first as a guide for me to follow, and then I sewed my top stitching line next to that facing. The thread I used for basting is a slightly different color than the rest of the fabric. You probably can't even see because the difference is so subtle, but I kind of like it. I like the embroidery, and I need to take out this basting stitching because it's not nice stitching. But I'm wondering if maybe I do some lines of larger stitch length in the lighter color as like an embroidery for the final jacket, especially because I think that when the flap is on, it's super cool. But I think it could use a little bit more something when the flap is not on. And I'm gonna wait on it because there will be buttons and everything on this jacket for the flap, so embroidery might be too much, but it's something that's sort of like floating around in my head. So don't be surprised when I start doing that. But anyway, the first thing we have to do before we can move on to anything is the other pocket. For this pocket, I don't know what it's called, but I think maybe this is a barn pocket, I don't know. But there's 3 pieces. We have our welt piece. We have this, which is going to be sort of a facing for the opening, and then our actual pocket piece. And the measurements on all of this is just these two should be like 1.5 to 2 inches longer than the pocket opening is. Although this is nebulous, they can be as long as you want, you can trim it down. And then this is the size that I wanted the pocket plus the 1/2 inch seam allowance for turning it over. And normally you would not have already cut the pocket opening on your garment. It will definitely be way easier if you didn't make this mistake. But I'm just gonna do my very best to press this opening as best as I can. And then we're just gonna start by placing the welt piece right sides together on that, centered. And I've marked a line in pen already of where the seam allowance on the welt piece is, so I know where it needs to be sewn. And now I've done that, I'm just going to place this rectangle directly over my opening and stitch around the entire perimeter. This is an exciting day, friends, because we are basically done with the jacket. I sewed the buttonholes last night, and every time I hand sew a buttonhole, I just get better. Although these were tricky because it was my first time not doing it in contrast stitching, so I was having a really hard time seeing where I needed to put my next stitch. I ended up I have this like LED panel light that's really bright, and I ended up basically putting it right over the fabric so I could like kind of see what I was doing, but they came out looking really nice. And now the last step is the scariest for me because we are going to install the hardware. I'm installing buttons, and then also I had bought these rivets and I kind of want to put them on the welt pockets because since I had to redo it after I'd cut it, there are some loose edges sticking out of the corners, and I was thinking that I could just hide it using the rivets, but I don't know, I'm really nervous. I semi-successfully did it on a practice piece of fabric, and by semi I just mean I dented the rivet a bit, but it was on. So the question is, do I go for it or do I chicken out? Now I'm gonna go hammer these in on a surface that isn't as flimsy as my table. Anyway, because you didn't see the inside of the jacket in the try-on, I just wanted to show it off really quick. That's it. Bye!